Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 285. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 27th of September, the month that seems like it cannot end. You know, people regularly bad talk January, and as a Januarian myself, I resent that bad talk. January is just out there. It's the first month of the year. It's doing its thing. You know, you can't rush the beginning of the year. You know, you have to work your way into it. So sometimes January feels like a long pants month, but September has no need to be taking this long. No, and you didn't miss a lot. If they want SW for a school district, you think they're studying children with disabilities. Good evening, Chinese Douglas. Good evening. And this evening we're starting off talking about some policies that the Ministry of Education seems like they want to implement here in Trinidad and Tobago. There has recently been a serious upsurge in homeschooling. All about the world really and truly, and Trinidad isn't separated from that idea. The pandemic created a boom in the homeschooling industry, if you will, in the homeschooling ideas, and with good reason. Some parents after a while started to see what the schools were giving their children, and they recognized, wait, I am better at teaching my children, which very likely you might very well be. So many parents have started into homeschooling, have started it, and recognize that, you know, it's not as difficult as some people make it seem. If your child doesn't go to a recognized institute, they can still learn a lot. They still have a lot of capability, and very often you see that homeschool children far exceed the performance of public school children. And you know, sometimes I saw a meme recently where they said, if you homeschool your child, someone was saying this as a worry, you know, if you homeschool your child, they wouldn't be like the other children, and the parent was like, yeah, that's the point. So homeschooling makes more sense these days. It kinda does. I'm telling you all, my children, well, there's only one so far, but she is schooling right here with me. And as we're talking about that, be sure to hit that like button, double tap the screen if you're over there on TikTok, hit the like button if you're viewing this on YouTube. If you wonder why more people don't view this kind of content, you are superstar, more of you as well. Share the content over there on YouTube, share it, and more people may view this. This, as per usual, has been brought to you, an ideal sponsor for this topic, Mindful Education, mindful with 2 L's, _education if you're looking for us over there on Instagram. You can follow us and message us if you're interested in homeschool style classes, learning pods, small groups with more personalized teaching, and you get to be comfortable and learn and familiarize yourself with your fellow students and with your tutor, etc. We have those classes from learning stages from preschool all the way up to CXC. We also offer personalized one-on-one tutoring for most CXC and CAPE subjects. If you need that specialized attention in those CXC and CAPE subjects, be sure to hit us up. But the government neglected these subsidies, better attention, and more curated environment for children to learn. All right, let's jump into the article. Education Ministry revamps homeschooling policy. Ask your question, Chinese Douglas. The Ministry of Education's National Education Policy 2023 to 2027 requires that parents or guardians apply to the ministry for permission to homeschool a child of compulsory school age. Since there was no such policy previously, parents could choose whether to inform the ministry that they were homeschooling their children. You see, right there, to me, it start off bad. My child is my child. How on earth could you tell me that I have to inform you that I am educating my child? My child is not the responsibility of the Ministry of Education of Trinidad and Tobago. My child is the responsibility of Nathan Springer and Mrs. Springer. If you want somebody after us that might be responsible, you could check her grandparents. Maybe then check her aunts and uncles. Present night Autotech. You know, you could check all of them, and all of them are on the list of important in priority of who gets to say what happens to this child way before any ministry or state. How far can homeschooling go to? Homeschooling can go to as high as you want it to go, really and truly. This is why Tobago does be vexed. Can a child that is homeschooled get the same opportunities? A child that is homeschooled very possibly can get more opportunities. It's according to what you're talking about. It's according to how you work homeschooling. So you homeschool your child up to CXC levels. By the way, you could write CXC as a private candidate. A lot of homeschool students write off many of their CXC subjects by 14, 15. So you may get a lot of those things already done and covered by then. And you could decide to go on to university if you want. You could decide to apprentice somewhere if you want. Many of the homeschoolers have homeschool groups. They build that rapport with each other. They build that familiarity. They have events together, etc. It's not a very difficult thing. Or to text us, but then again, they want to know where the human resource, their human resource is going. You see, here's the problem I have with the assumption that the government is the one that really has the care for the child at heart. It's not true. And statistics bear that fact out. I mean, common sense is supposed to bear that fact out. You're supposed to be able to use your common sense and figure out that no one is generally going to care for a child more than their biological parents. But statistically, you look at most of the trafficked children in the world. Where do they come from? The Child Protective Service. State control of children is one of the ideal and top places. Yes, it is school related, Bali, right in your wheelhouse. The state institutions are one of the chief places where children are trafficked from, where children are abused. So it's like this, where, you know, people point out that, okay, they are bad parents. Yes, they are bad parents, without a doubt. But they are bad parents doesn't mean that the state is actually a better alternative. That to me, this is one of the chief problems we have when looking at solutions in the world. Okay, bad thing is happening right now. There is a bad thing happening. That does not mean that the state has a better solution. I remember saying this over and over and over during the COVID pandemic. Yes, the coronavirus is out there. But that does not mean everything that the state does in reaction to the virus is a good idea. Because very often the state does insanity. Democracy isn't so applicable in a lot of things. Example, what you're talking about. Democracy has nothing to do with my children. Democracy has to do with the government and the state. And therein is where we need to understand the very principle of the state, where their boundary stops. The problem today exists when the parents themselves need homeschooling. They themselves need it. Here's the thing. I think even an idiot parent, if they love their child, would very often do pretty well at educating their child. Even if they're an idiot parent. If they love their child, very often what they do is they get into contact with tutors. They form groups with their neighbors. They form groups with fellow homeschoolers. So the state is messed up correctly. During COVID, I saw a parent leave a child in a game cafe, no classes, nothing. But the social worker never checked either. Some parents are kids having kids, so that's a problem there. Yes, and that has always been the case. There have always been kids having kids. And how that was partially solved is the kids who have kids would have parents, and the parents of the kids who have kids would help to take care of the kids. And part of the reason we are seeing some of these issues is because we have strengthened the state. We have built a society that has the state at such a level that many people think, okay, I could go out there and have a child on my own. There are many single mothers out there because we incentivize such things. We allow such promiscuity to encourage such kind of outcomes, and then we're shocked that those are the outcomes, and we want the state somehow to solve this, while the state has been to some extent the facilitator of a lot of this in the first place. The solution to a lot of that is stronger family. Good night, Miss Valley. Opting to homeschool parents need to be able to deliver the syllabus. Can they? They need to deliver what syllabus, Jamie Ford? What syllabus do they need to deliver? That is actually not true. Who decides what syllabus a child needs to learn? Who decides what are the educational topics that this child must have covered before they reach adulthood? Go look at the Amish communities in the United States. Some of those communities are wealthier than some of the communities in public education. The Amish community is wealthier than the black inner city ghetto communities, and those black inner city ghetto communities, they all have public education, and the Amish homeschool their children in a church school, teaching them Bible, straight Bible, up till something like 12 or something like that, and they don't do much more after that. And somehow those Amish children are well spoken, they are well rounded, well grounded, and they are able to go and seek further education if they want to leave the Amish homes. Strange enough. So the idea that somehow, if we don't have the public education system's syllabus, that our children are just going to be so duncy and dumb is ridiculous. That's not true. Listen, if we started a public education system to take children from the age of 1 year, of 10 months, before they walk, and then they learn to walk while going to the government mandated daycare centers. Soon enough, within a decade or two, you would have people telling you that children couldn't learn to walk if they didn't go to the public schools. You know, if parents keep home their babies, that baby will never walk, you know. You see, Janice says she's not sending the child to the public daycare. How her child going to learn to walk? You feel Janice could teach the child how to walk? Janice never learned any sports theory. Janice never went to university to learn the locomotion of humans. How on earth is Janice going to teach her child how to walk? That's what we would say. I assure you, that's what people would see if we had such a situation. Somehow we believe that, you know, if we don't send the child 8 hours a day into the public institution to be institutionalized, somehow this child is going to be dunce head. That's not true. Do not buy it. Throw it away if they give it to you. It's a lie. It is not true. Now, parents and guardians are not only expected to apply for approval annually apply for approval for homeschooling, but if the application is not approved, and if we had to look at the firearms licenses and use that as a gauge as to how independently the PNM government wants someone to run their family, I would not be surprised if quite a few of those applications are not approved. If the annual application to the ministry to homeschool your own child is not approved, the education minister will facilitate placement in a public school, or the parents can register the child at a private school registered with the ministry. You all are understanding what that statement means. You apply for permission to teach your own child. The ministry says no. And you have to put your child into a public school or a private school. Now, let's put that in a working class family. Let's put that in a working class family. So a working class family where daddy is working, he's working really hard, pulling some long hours. Mommy stays home because she is interested in that homeschooling business. She's learning on a daily basis on the internet. She has it down. But you know, maybe she didn't have her official subjects, whatever might be the thing. She doesn't get approval. But they don't have any great extra money to educate their 3 children in private school. So if you tell them they do not have approval for homeschooling and they must send their child now to a school, where are they going to send their child? A public school. And which kind of public school do you think the government is going to place your child in? A government zoned school. some of the worst schools in the country. Meaning the child is expected to do national testing. That comes after Jamie Ford. That's not, we haven't even reached the standardized testing part yet. This is not about standardized testing yet. This is about applying for permission from the ministry just to start educating your child. And they can refuse that approval and force your child into a public education system. And as I was saying, where do you think the government is going to place your child? Into some one of the former junior sex or senior sex? And I know many people went to those schools and all of them aren't bad and many good things could come out of those schools. But if you are being honest, if you homeschool your little child 14 years and the government is now forcing them to be placed into a school and you hear your child is going to be forcefully placed into Karapichaima East Secondary School, your heart is going to flip. With good cause. A 14-year-old homeschool child dropped into a government school is fresh meat. Good night, Dice Joe. I could tell you, I don't know about other people, but they will have to jail me for that one. Because you didn't make my child. My wife did the major heavy lifting in the making department. I added, 50-50 with the genetics. And we're doing this ourselves, basically. Mrs. Nyan Gadsby Dali, with all respect to you, you had no part to play in this. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. I would like to see, just as you are saying, Ronnie, I would like to see how are they going to make me. How are they going to make any parent? And in the United States, the Democrats and the liberals fell into trouble recently when their trans agenda, etc., bounced upon parents. You see, mothers, that's a difficult group to beat. Mothers who care about their children. And let me tell you, the homeschooling parents are not the slack parents. A parent who decides to take their child out of the school, go through the headache of educating their child themselves, is generally speaking not the slack parents. Those are the parents that are paying attention. I do not think this is a fight that the Ministry of Education really wants. Let's go on. If requested by the ministry, the parent is expected to submit an end of year report. So the ministry can demand an end of year report from the parent. They are also expected to submit to virtual or in-person visits by ministry officials to ensure the care and protection of the child. What? In-person visits? To where? To my home? So, the Ministry of Education that is in control of the schools, where just today a boy was stabbed up, the day before another boy was stabbed. Weekly there are traumatic fights, there's bullying, there's assault, there's all manner of horrific stories. That ministry with failing schools around the country is going to come into my home to make sure my child is well taken care of. Eh? Eh? I just find the idea of that offensive and disrespectful. The very idea of that is offensive and disrespectful. We're coming to make sure that you taking good care of your child. Mind your business. How's your child doing? How's your wife? How's your husband? How's your home? Go take care of yours. And then go take care of the public schools. And when the public schools are in order, then you could return to my home and request to check up on my child. Insanity. If the child is on probation, they are also expected to be able to observe the classroom instruction. So if the child is on probation, the visitor to your home could sit down while you homeschool your child. They sit down there and take in the instructions. And you could see, if you just listen to how this is phrased, you understand they don't understand homeschooling. Hi, Holly Joseph. They don't understand homeschooling in the first place. What do you mean observe classroom instruction? Homeschooling, part of it might be while we're walking out in the yard, we're teaching and learning something. Are you going to be in my yard with my wife in her house dress as she walks around with our children, observing what they talk about? You are insane if you think you're going to do that. Not in my home. What do you expect to observe there? They'll come accompanied by police if met with resistance, Joe's Red Noah says. Listen, if the PNM attempts to come with police to police parents homeschooling their children, the PNM will never win another election in this country. I could assure you that. And I myself will work personally to make sure such happens. They will never win again. It's amazing to me that some of the parents that were just 3 months ago worried and afraid to death about rainbows in a book aren't worried about a government attempting to have full control over your child. This is the same government that is also attempting to usurp the power and control of the religious boards in the education system also. Right now, the Presbyterian board has them in court. I believe the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, the Hindu board, has them in court. The Islamic board is monitoring those things because all of the religious boards are upset with the ministry right now. Same ministry. I do not like the direction these people are headed in. Let's go on to confirm that they don't understand homeschooling. They really don't understand the point of it. So here's how the probation works. If a child is evaluated using ministry approved standardized assessments and found to be functioning at a lower level than expected, the chief education officer could advise the parent on an adapted curriculum and the child be placed on probation for 1 term. So the homeschooler now is supposed to teach their child at the same pace and level as the ministry's standardized tests and assessments. That's the very thing most homeschoolers are trying to avoid. They do not want your one-size-fits-all approach. They do not think it works. It's not what they want. But you are now coming to see, we want to impose on you, you who are fleeing the one-size-fits-all approach, we want to come and find you where you are and impose upon you the one-size-fits-all approach. And if your child size doesn't fit our one-size-fits-all approach, we're going to put them on probation. And if they still don't fit, here's what we're going to do: drag them into our public schools. But here's my question. Okay, if the homeschool child isn't functioning at top levels in the standardized assessments, you're going to drag them into the public schools. But what do you do when the public school children aren't functioning at the right level in the standardized assessments? Because many of them are not. So, my child is only allowed to fail inside the public school. Look out for fines and penalties if persons don't comply. They will have to fine the whole country, and I will not pay. I will take that fine and I will not pay. You are going to have to jail me for teaching my child. And I can tell you, by and large, no Western government that wants to be considered a free government wants to jail a parent for educating their child. They will get riots. Listen. Many people talk about Trinidadians. Trinidadians don't protest for anything. Trinidadians take everything. Trinidadians do that. Trinidadians do the other. One of the most assured reasons you could get people to fight you literally to the death, one of the reasons you could get people to lay down their lives the easiest, is for their children. That's what most family-oriented people have in their minds anyway. That is not a battle you would win. It's not. So, fine if you want. I'm not paying the fine. You'd have to jail me for that. Responding I have interest in reading too much of all of that. Many of them who were there outlined the fact that even some international consultants call this one of the worst bits of legislation they've read. The legislation reads like someone who does not understand homeschooling. It reads like someone who is trying to force you to not homeschool your child. That's what it reads like. And to me, when I put this there, along with the fact that this ministry and minister is attempting to take away power from the religious bodies, it doesn't bode well for this Ministry of Education. I hate it, to put it strongly. I hate it. The idea that the state wants to control how and what all children learn. You look across the world and that's not a good thing. You do not want politicians in control of educating your children. Politicians seek their self-interest. That's what politicians do. Is this policy a UN mandate? No, it is not. It's not. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's draft policy. We'll see when they want to get it out there fully what they're going to end up with. But I somehow don't think they're going to win on this one. I don't believe they're going to win. I don't think that they would be able to line up things the way they think they will. And I don't believe homeschooling is going to be shrinking anytime soon. I think the need, use, and prevalence of homeschooling is only on the rise, and I think it would continue being on the rise faster and faster. And really and truly, moves like this may actually scare more and more people into homeschooling. Why is our government so obsessed with attempting to control the education of the youth. The primary reason is the state wants to control the next generation. To put it simply, the state wants to control the next generation because they would like people loyal to the state. But here's the thing. The family is the basic building block of society. You do not get to usurp the family. I believe someone in this meeting quoted the UN in the UN's view on this. The head of the Homeschool Association. We believe that there should be some form of monitoring. However, this cannot be overly onerous so as to destroy the very essence of the homeschooling philosophy or to discourage parents from homeschooling altogether. There's an attempt by the Ministry of Education via this policy to violate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that the family is the fundamental group unit of society and that parents have a prior right to decide what kind of education shall be given to their children. This was conveniently omitted when the legal foundation for the policy was iterated by the Ministry of Education. The idea of human rights, the idea of the individual is built on the principle, generally speaking, that the family is the building block of society, especially the nuclear family. That's why regularly when you see the revolutionaries who always want to recreate society in their own image, one of the things they always tackle first or fight first is the family. It's hard to conquer a society if you haven't first dismantled the families. You look at communities, you look at the community, one of the communities we regularly talk about, the black community in some of those inner cities in the United States, some of those downtrodden communities. The way that those communities are taken advantage of chiefly is because the family is dismantled. Nearly no community can be taken advantage of easily, at least once the family is intact. It's difficult to do it, and I see some of this as a direct affront to the power and primacy of the family unit over a child. Not my children, not my child. Not my child, not at all. Do you endorse homeschooling? Yes, I do. 100%. 100%. I do homeschooling. I am my part of my occupation depends on homeschooling. So, yes, I do endorse homeschooling. And very often you find children learn much faster at home than in school. Much faster. And here's a controversial opinion. I think homeschooling may even need to be more gendered. You may more likely need to homeschool your boys than your daughters. The public education system is designed with a feminine lean. It's engineered in a way that is more suited to how girls learn best. That's just a fact. You might be shocked. Some of those little troublesome dunce head boys in school if they're home in a loving environment where they're able to exert their energy and use it up when necessary and get just some of the topics that can fuel their curiosity, you may be surprised how fast some of those boys learn. The idea of it that if your child is failing while you're homeschooling the child, they are going to pull them out of your control. But there are children failing daily inside of the public education system, and they just remain there suffering day after day. But those same people are going to pull your child out of your home if they think they're failing. Makes sense, and makes so much sense. I think the ministry is backing up a very bad tree there. A tree that they should leave alone. All right. True, they get lost and left behind. Yeah, they do. All right, let's jump into another article there. As some people were talking about whether this was a United Nations idea, etc. Every day to me it seems this government is very socialist. Yes, really and truly nearly every government is socialist in a training hotel, because socialism really is just expanding government power. That's what the base. When you pull apart all of the fancy language and the helping the poor and the helping this, when you pull it apart, what socialism really is giving the government more power. And if people could pull away the blinders for long enough to understand that, yes, I know you want cheaper homes, I know you think that everybody deserves a house, you think that everybody deserves food, everybody deserves everything, but if your idea to get everybody to get all of these things is to allow the government to take it from other people, that does not work. It's not going to help anyone get anything other than the politicians. It does not work. It would be wonderful if the ministry was indeed so caring about every child's education, and when they talk about a child's education, they're being serious and legitimate, and when they come and look at what parents do at homeschooling and they find something lacking, they really would help the parents. And if they take the child, they put the child into an intensive education program and the child comes out better, that would have been perfect. I would have loved that. But that's not the case. That is not what happens. We know this. So why believe them when they come saying, okay, what we want to do is XYZ. We know what you say you want to do, but we know how these things end up. They don't work. And as some people were pointing out, were asking if this comes from a UN policy or something like that. I don't think so. There was no mention of anything like that. But there's reason to think about that. I was looking at a story today on fishing. As interesting as it is on fishing. And you could see how we very often are squeezed into policies that we may not necessarily believe in. They're policies that come from distant lands forcing us to see things and do things a certain way. Trinidad and Tobago fish exports banned from European Union. Fish from Trinidad and Tobago can no longer be exported to the European Union after the European Commission branded TT a non-cooperating country in the fight against illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. The EU's IUU regulation, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, requires countries to certify that fish caught by their vessels vessels and exported to the EU do not stem from illegal fishing activities. A press release from the Commission on Tuesday said the decision was based on TT's failure to address shortcomings after being issued a yellow card warning in April 2016. EU Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries, Virginijus Sinkevicius, said the Commission is strongly committed to sustainable fisheries and efficient ocean governance. We have zero tolerance for IUU fishing, and today the Commission has taken firm action by giving TT a red card. Now, these are the things that many of these large countries have been doing for the better part of 60, 70, 100 years. As soon as colonialism was given up, they decided to push around their economic strength and economic weight to force things to happen in these countries. So, okay, we're not going to directly leave a representative from our political establishment in your country to force things to happen. No. What we're going to do is we're going to allow you to govern yourself. But in order for you to do anything on the outside, you need to govern yourself how we tell you to govern yourself. And I find some of these things so ironic. The European Union. Now, if you all listen to enough of my content, you know I am not of the view that, you know, it was just the Europeans, just the pale skinned guys that were the only evil people in human history. They were the only bad guys that did bad things in human history. I know that's not true. That's not my view. But nonetheless, in the current modern zeitgeist, in the modern consciousness, the Europeans have most recently been the preeminent bad guys when it comes to global dominance. When it comes to using people's resources, stealing it, let me get the illegal, unreported and unregulated use of other people's resources, Europeans were champions of that for the better part of the last 400 plus years. It's kind of ironic now that if we do not pass the legislation that they demand, now they say we are now so moral. We have gotten to such a moral position in the world that we will no longer trade with you. Sure, of course you have. But beside the colonists doing what the colonists do, this shows the incompetence of governance. To me, this shows the incompetence of governance in the first place. Because the yellow card for this offense was given in 2016. We're in 2023. That's 7 years. You're trying to tell me in 7 years the government was unable to formulate legislation to keep in good standing with the European Union to trade fish? And the issue here isn't even the government is saying that we will not be blackmailed, we will not be pressured into passing legislation. The government isn't saying that. The government is promising that they are working on it. The government is promising that. The Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries said the current fisheries legislation is more than 100 years old and does not allow Trinidad and Tobago to adequately address its international obligations. It added, in an attempt to fast-track the passage of new modern legislation, a joint select committee of Parliament was convened, so they are working on it. 7 years now. I could teach my own child schoolwork. What I cannot do is pass legislation that will be recognized by the European Union to allow my neighbors, them fishing down in the valley, to export fish. I cannot do that. If I were to place in two boxes for you to choose, two government duties, two duties of the state, to determine everything my child must be taught, even from me, or to pass laws in the parliament, which one of these two duties do you think is more in fitting with what the government's job is? Here's what. All the homeschool policy people take them from formulating the homeschool policy because they don't know what they're doing anyway, and carry them over in the Ministry of Agriculture to speed up this fisheries process so that the fishermen could be able to export their fish by next month. That's more in line with your job. But so often, because of modern emotional behavior, I've seen some people blame this on the fact that women were given the vote. That's an argument that I think may be debatable out there. But women vote on more emotion-based policies and ideas. So politicians start to pander to more emotional-based policies and ideas. And by and large, women are more easily influenced into some of these decisions. You could not like the facts, but they are the facts. That's why so often you see so many governments deciding to tackle things like homeschooling while you haven't passed fishing legislation. Listen, governments going back to the Tainos, the Arawaks, and the Kalinagos, the Caribs as they were called, even those governments with their caciques and chiefs, they regulated their fishing. They were able to do their fishing regulation since thousands of years ago. You trying to tell me right now we're unable to do that, but we want to be able to dictate the intricacies of every lesson you teach in the privacy of your home. Trini Hotep, I didn't say that. I was just pointing out some realities. I didn't say I want to take anyone's vote away. I was just pointing out realities. Personally, my view is I don't think everyone having a right to vote makes sense. Controversial. Hot take. It's a hot take coming in here. I think the people that should be voting should be the people who have a stake inside of the business. The people who are paying. That's just my controversial view. The people who should decide how things should be spent should be the people who are making the money. Anyway, leaving that where it is, it's not surprising to me they seem to be neglecting a lot of issues. I mean, bro, men didn't want the vote in the beginning anyway. Some didn't. But I think that was a psyop. Personally, I think it was a psyop done to, because if you look at what happened since universal suffrage, wages were stagnated, more women joined the workforce, the family was broken down to a large extent, promiscuity skyrocketed, fatherless homes skyrocketed. It seems like it was a plan. Power and money. It's always for power and money, really and truly. Always about power and money. You think politicians care about you? They don't. Even the nice politicians, by and large, they just don't even have the ability to care about you. There are 1.4, 1.3 million people in Trinidad and Tobago. No one has the bandwidth to intimately care about 1.4 million people equally. It just does not happen. It's not going to happen. They don't. Stop buying that lie. They don't. So when people come promising you something, if they are promising you it based on them caring for you, be very suspicious. Try to see what else might be the reasoning behind this, because It doesn't seem to be adding up about caring. Another issue like that, scientific approach needed. Labor Ministry seeks to change minimum wage determination system in a bid to overhaul the process currently used to determine the minimum wage in Trinidad and Tobago. The Ministry of Labor is actively engaged in the selection of a consultant to introduce a more scientific and less subjective approach. Now, one of the things we have done in the last year is created a terms of reference to engage a consultant to define a way to determine what should be a minimum wage in a more scientific way. And these are things, you see, this is how the whole system works. The system that parties and people and groups like the PNM, people who believe in that technocracy kind of running of a country, this is how it's like an illegal scheme in a sense. It's like a con where they send their people through to the tops of the education system, where it's not necessarily about merit in and of itself. There's a large part of it to do with your connections, and then you get a job as a consultant. You see, here's the strange thing with this. The minister said this. They have a minimum wage board within the ministry. Within the ministry, we have a board, a minimum wage board that would have made a representation for the increase of the minimum wage. So there are multiple people being paid inside the ministry to determine minimum wage. But currently, the ministry is looking for an external expert and consultant to pay them very likely millions of dollars to consult to decide how much to pay the poorest people in the country. Do you all really think that is actually about the poorest people in the country? And as I've said so many times, minimum wage is a con. Minimum wage makes no sense. Minimum wage is a nothing. It's a nothing burger. The minimum wage is zero. If you are not worth $30 and they raise the minimum wage to $30, the employer is going to fire you. That's all that's going to happen. Your wage isn't magically going to increase to more than you're worth. It's not going to happen. It's either inflation is going to happen to a level where the increased worth becomes a decreased value, or you're going to lose your job and they're going to hire someone more qualified or more suitable to the job. Minimum wage, I think, in modern times doesn't really add up like that. It doesn't work like that. So the whole thing seems like a con and a nothing burger. It seems like a nonsense in the first place. And then they're paying people millions of dollars to decide on the nonsenses. And on the ministry side, they're paying their consultant, they're paying their minimum wage board to do all of this. And on the union side, you're paying your union boss and your union dues for them to go up there and say nonsense about a $30 minimum wage that they know makes no sense. But they don't care. They just need to rabble rouse and make enough noise so that you keep paying your union dues. The idea that the state, through legislation, through law, through edict, through just the state saying so, can make you earn more money. If you really think about it, like, stop, take a pause, look around that reality, and think about it. It does not really make sense. I think, especially in modern times, we have governments and the state entering avenues and fields they don't belong in and neglecting areas that they do. Neglecting things that the low-hanging fruit. Listen, for me, if a government cannot keep the highways smooth and paved, I do not trust that government. Good night, Willie Bang. Alright, the internet dropped and it came back. Yes, I was on a bit of a hiatus there, bro. A short hiatus, but I'm back now. I'm back now. Alright. Alright, folks. With that little internet drop there, I know it goes. Yeah, man. Yeah. Respect to you, bro. With that little internet drop there, folks, that's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Are there any further comments or questions inside of the live? If not, I would be bidding you good night. Nah, no Tobago this week, Ronnie. No Tobago. We didn't talk any direct Tobago news. I had some Tobago stories pulled up, but the education had it first. Be mindful, not mindless, as Trini Hotep says. I agree, bro. Mindful, not mindless. I hope you guys have a good day tomorrow. I will see you guys for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow evening, Thursday. Thursday is the nice live. Thursday is Thursday Talks, where we jump in. There are no direct topics we're talking about tomorrow evening. We just jump in, and who would like to jump into the discussion, and we discuss. We discuss whichever topics come across inside of the live. It's usually a nice, fun, educational time. And I'll be there tomorrow around 9 p.m. Today was 9:30. I said I would be here 9:30 and I was here 9:30 today. Tomorrow is around that 9 p.m. time. No, Nisi, you're rushing the week. It's still Wednesday. We will be here again tomorrow. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained as per usual. Hit us up for those homeschooling style classes on Mindful Education, Mindful with 2 L's Education over on Instagram. And you can hit us up for those private tutoring classes also if you are interested. I will see you guys for the next Mindful Live session tomorrow evening. Until then, folks, peace. Hold it down. Stay well.